hello everyone. Today is Halloween. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be seeing two really definitely scary stories. I'm gonna find one and I'm gonna put one on and then we're gonna see another one. Okay. I don't care about 3. Why are there so many ones that are just like 3? Okay, here's one. This video is gonna be like 50. It's slow.
Around 2 a.m. on our first night at our hotel, there's a knock on our door. We open it to see who's here this late, but nobody's there. We think, okay, that's weird, but maybe someone just had the wrong room. Until the next night, when the same thing happens. But this time, it actually became scary because of what happened next. So I'm about to tell you what ruined mine and Nick's whole trip to New York. To understand this, I have to take you back to the very first moment we arrived in NYC. The story started with me and Nick saying to ourselves, hey, we're both bored, we're both unemployed, we should go on a trip. And after about 5 seconds of thinking, the destination we landed on was New York City. The moment Nick recommended New York, my eyes lit up because imagine all the content opportunities there. So I immediately told him I was down. We planned out the dates to go, bought our plane tickets, and booked the hotel. But what we didn't know at the time was the hotel we were booking would become our worst nightmare. When we first pulled up to it, we thought we were at the wrong place because it was really nice. The workers were in suits. People were asking if they could take our bags, but the most fancy part was that you had to scan your hotel key to even use the elevators, meaning no one could go to any of the rooms at this hotel unless they were actually staying in there. And keep this in mind because it will be very important to remember later. So with all this in mind, you would think this hotel would be super safe to stay at, right? Well, not so much. Once me and Nick put all our stuff in our room, we immediately went to exploring the city. First day there, we went to Central Park and walked around there for hours. We got huge slices of pizza, went to Times Square and took a bunch of photos. You know, the more I talk about this, the more it kind of just sounds like we were on a date. Nick, were we on a date, bro? Anyways, we spent that whole first day just walking around the city until our feet hurt. By the time we got back to the hotel, we were exhausted. But since we were so exhausted, we missed some key details walking back into the hotel that would come back to bite us later. Because when we got back to our room, we immediately fell asleep. Like, I don't even remember if we actually locked the door that night. So we're both completely knocked out, snoring louder than a train, when suddenly, around 2 a.m., we hear a knock at our door. And not like a gentle tap or anything. No, it was 3 knocks that couldn't be confused for anything else. And it woke us up immediately. They were so loud, we knew it couldn't have been by accident. I looked over at Nick, and he was already sitting up in bed looking confused. We both just paused there for a second, wondering if we actually heard what we thought we did. But since we were both up, we obviously both heard it, and we just started arguing with each other. Nick, go check who's at the door.
I'm not getting up. You go look.
No, what if they're dangerous? You go do it.
That's exactly why I don't want to do it.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. I got out of bed and walked toward the front door, and the whole room was completely silent except for my footsteps. I tried looking through the peephole, but it was kind of dirty, so I couldn't really see anything through it. Nick whispered asking who it was, but I just shrugged because I couldn't really see. So finally, I opened the door to get a clearer look at whatever or whoever was out there, expecting to see someone standing there. Maybe just another guest who got confused with the wrong room. But when I swung that handle open, nobody was there. The hallway was completely empty. I stuck my head out and looked both ways, thinking that maybe someone was just walking away already, but I didn't see anyone. The elevator was closed, and there weren't any voices or footsteps. It was like whoever or whatever just knocked on our door completely vanished into thin air. Or is it out of thin air? I don't care. Whatever. That's why I never did good in school. Okay. Nick thought I was playing a prank on him at first when I told him that there was literally no one there because it just didn't make any sense. The knocks were so loud and intentional that there had to be a reason for it. I promised him I wasn't joking. So we called the front desk and asked if there was any employees that just came out to our room for some reason. They replied back saying not that they know of. So now we were really confused. But after a couple minutes of being sketched out over this, we decided it was probably nothing and we were just overreacting. So we went back to bed. We figured weird stuff happens in hotels all the time. Like, have y'all seen The Shining? Actually, now that I think about it, that's not very reassuring. But anyways, people get lost all the time, looking for their room numbers. Maybe it's a staff member that went to the wrong place. Kids running around the hallways. We brushed it off as one of those random things that probably didn't mean anything. But that decision to ignore it completely would end up haunting us the rest of our trip. The real fear that something dangerous was brewing occurred when the second night came around. Because this was when we learned that what happened the first night was no accident. When we tried going to sleep that second night, me and Nick were still talking about that crazy knock we heard the night before, both just thinking it was probably a one-time thing that randomly happened. We turned off the lights around midnight and closed our eyes to go to bed. Now that I say this part out loud, it kind of sounds like we were having a slumber party too. I should just stop. We were in separate beds, by the way, okay? We were not sharing one. But we eventually fall asleep until once again, in the dead of night, we hear 3 knocks on our door. This time, we both jump up quickly, having the same thing in mind. Catch whoever is knocking. I look through the peephole again, because we cleaned it this time so I could actually see through it. But once again, there was no one in the hallway. I fully opened the door, thinking maybe I could catch whoever this was going into the elevator or going down the stairs. But I didn't see a single person. And the weirdest part about it, we heard no footsteps, no voices, no elevator ding, and no doors shutting. So how was whatever was knocking on our door just quickly disappearing out of nowhere like this? Well, I closed the door and told Nick that I didn't see anyone in the hallway. And we both just sat there trying to figure out what could possibly be going on. And that's when Nick and I combined our 2 brain cells and came up with a great idea. Call the front desk and report this. But as we're about to do that, something else happened that made this situation way, way worse. I was walking towards our hotel phone when out of nowhere, a green light starts beaming through our window. At first, I thought it was just a reflection from something outside, maybe a neon sign or a traffic light, but as I got closer to the window, I realized it was moving. The light was scanning back and forth across our walls like someone was controlling it. Someone was outside our hotel, pointing a laser directly into our room. So they could see exactly where we were and exactly what we were doing. This is when we both realized someone had probably been watching us for both nights. I was scared to look through the window to see who was pointing the laser because I didn't know where it was coming from. Like, I've played Call of Duty, I've trick-shotted, I know those snipers have lasers on them. So what if the laser being pointed was coming from a weapon? That was my fear, but I knew we had to get a good look at whoever was doing this. So I tried peeking through the window, using the shades as my cover. But the moment I even touched the shades, the laser immediately went away. I scanned outside looking for whoever or whatever was doing this to us, but I saw no one. Except for some homeless dude shadowboxing himself, but I don't think he was the one doing it. But you never know. Some of those homeless people out there just be tricking us like this guy. There's a homeless man outside of Walmart right now who's offering free bags of hot Cheetos to anyone who is willing to give him a foot massage. I called Nick over to see if he could find where the laser was coming from, because it seemed to be from across the street at the angle it was pointed at. But every time we tried looking out the window to see who was pointing it, the laser would disappear immediately. And also, it's important to note, we were staying on the 9th floor of this hotel, so we were pretty high up. And the fact that if someone was targeting us, they somehow knew exactly where to point this laser out of all these rooms was pretty weird. We spent about 10 minutes trying to find whoever was doing this. One of us would duck down while the other would peek out the window trying to find someone. I can't even imagine how dumb we looked in real time doing this. But whoever it was seemed to know exactly what we were doing, because the laser would always vanish the moment one of us looked out the window. It was like they were watching us, watching them. The paranoia started settling in really bad by this point. We realized that not only was someone knocking on our door in the middle of the night, but someone else, which who knows if they were affiliated with each other, was pointing a laser straight into our room. They knew exactly which window was ours and could see our every move. After we couldn't find the person who did this, we realized we couldn't actually do anything about it. So we just closed the curtains completely and went back to bed, but we couldn't fall asleep. So we just kept whispering back and forth to each other about what we thought was going on. It fell straight out of Step Brothers. The green laser had confirmed our worst fear. Someone was watching us. But the worst part about all this was what I mentioned in the beginning of the video. If you wanted to get to the floor we were on, you needed a key card to access it, which meant whoever was messing with us must have been staying inside our hotel, or so we thought. We eventually fell asleep, and when the next morning came, we knew we needed to get to the bottom of this now. So picture this. I'm at my laptop planning a dream vacation to Hawaii. I'm looking at flights, hotels, activities to do while I'm there. But when I check out, I look at the total and it's basically screaming, if you book this trip, you will be living off ramen noodles for the next 6 months. Like, my flight alone was more expensive than my entire car. The hotel? Bro, the hotel wanted me to sell my kidney as a down payment. So I was this close to just not doing the trip. But then I remembered Cooper, the virtual shopping assistant that literally saved my whole vacation. Here's how it works. You hit checkout on whatever you're shopping for, and Cooper starts firing off coupon codes like it's in the Matrix, testing everyone out until it finds the best deal. My $1,200 total dropped to just $1,000. Then I bought the essentials for the trip, like sunscreen, and Cooper gave me cash back.
Oh
It literally
god,
paid me
it's
to
an
pack. And
advertisement.
speaking of packing, it even told me my suitcase was $30 cheaper somewhere else. So if Cooper can rescue my vacation, imagine what it could do for you. Download Cooper for free Link is in the description.
No.
Black Friday is coming soon, so make
I'm
sure
not
to use
downloading
Cooper
Coop
to
or
save
whatever the
even
heck it's
more.
called.
So after waking up and getting ready, we went down to the lobby and told the front desk about our situation. But what they had to say about it just made everything even more terrifying. Because we went up to the employee at the desk who had a name tag on that said Chris. I started explaining what had been happening to us. Trying not to sound crazy, I told him about the knocking on the door both nights and how no one was there when we would open it. And at first, Chris was nodding along like he was really listening to us. But I could tell he was probably thinking, these guys are just schizophrenic or something. But as we're telling the story, we finally got to the green laser part. And this was when I see Chris's eyebrow go up a little bit. He asked us right away what floor we were staying on and what our room number was. And when we told him, he started typing something into his computer. Explain their whole security system to us
Okay.
that I already told you guys about. He said they have a very strict security protocol at this hotel because there's always super wealthy and famous people staying there. Like, they said Leonardo DiCaprio stayed there. And then you just had me and Nick. I asked him about the possibility of someone getting a hold of a key card somehow, even if they weren't staying there. Maybe they found one another guest dropped, or something like that. Chris said, although that was possible, it was pretty unlikely because they deactivated all the cards the moment that someone checked out of the hotel. Nick asked about emergency exits or stairwells that someone could have used to access the floor we were on. Chris explained that all the stairwell doors were locked from the inside. You could use them to go down in case of emergency, but you couldn't even get into them without a key card in the first place. So that wasn't an option either. The more Chris explained their security system, the more confused and scared me and Nick got. Everything he was saying made perfect sense, but it was also making it more confusing on how any of this could have even happened. I could see that Chris was starting to think we were either being paranoid or maybe just making this whole thing up. We took a couple pics with fans earlier in the lobby, so maybe he thought we were just content creators who were trying to mess with him. Nick and I started to get frustrated because we knew Chris didn't believe us. And we couldn't blame him because what we were describing really did sound impossible based off their security system. But we also knew that whatever was happening to us was real. The only reassuring thing he tried to tell us was that they will make sure no one gets into the hotel tonight unless they stay there. And then he said if anything else comes up, call the front desk. That's when we realized we had to take matters into our own hands. But when we left that day and started traveling around the city, this is when the problem started following us outside of the hotel. Because this day, we were going to Brooklyn, which wasn't very close at all to where we were staying. So we got to the subway to head over to where we were going, just minding our own business. But as we're sitting on it, we see a guy in a neon green shirt, probably around my age, just sitting there. He wasn't doing anything weird. He looked like a completely normal dude, but I could tell that he was side-eyeing me and Nick every few seconds. And you might think, oh, Tyler, maybe he just knew who you guys were. I thought that was a possibility at first too. But he didn't have the expression on his face of someone who was a fan. No, because this was the expression he had. To be fair, a lot of New Yorkers naturally just kind of look angry like that, but this felt different. We ignored it at first, thinking we were probably just overanalyzing it because of everything that was going on, so we kept minding our own business. We got off that subway and had to get onto another one to get to our final destination. But what do you know? When we got on that other subway car, you know who was on there? The guy with the neon green shirt. Could he have just coincidentally been going to the exact same place as us? Sure, but the way he was staring in our direction, we made sure to keep an eye on him. We eventually got to the stop where we were supposed to get off, and the neon green shirt guy got off too. But when we left the station, he walked in the opposite direction of us. So we both thought, okay, it was just a coincidence. He's not following us. We went about our day, made some content, ate some good food, walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. You know what? Now that I think about it again, this sounds like a date too. I'm just gonna stop explaining our day. Anyways, we headed back to our hotel around 11 p.m. But as we're about half a mile away from getting back to our hotel, you know who we saw? The dude in the neon green shirt. You couldn't miss him. He looked like Kermit the Frog. He didn't seem to be staring at us this time, but still, the odds of us randomly running into him again after what just happened seemed very, very slim. We chose to ignore it though because it didn't look like he even noticed us this time, and we just kept walking. But when we went into our hotel to sleep for night 3, everything changed. Because the weird knocks on the door and the laser being pointed at our room had happened twice now. So we figured it was probably going to happen again this night. And with that in mind, we made a plan. Take shifts of one person sleeping while the other person sits by the front door. And if you hear a knock or even footsteps coming by that door, open it immediately and catch whoever was doing this. We figured if we were already sitting by the door awake when someone knocked on it, we would actually be fast enough to catch them. Because for some reason, whoever was doing this was literally the Flash, and they would just disappear before we could ever get to him. I took the first shift staying up while Nick slept, and every few minutes, whenever I would hear a voice or footsteps coming by the door, I would immediately look through the people. But it usually just turned out to be other people that were staying on that floor. Every time I heard a noise, my heart was pounding, thinking this could be the person who's messing with us. Nothing happened during my shift staying up, so I woke up Nick and told him it was his turn. But no one came to the door while he was up either. He woke me up to take my second shift of the night, but it was during this shift that the thing we had been dreading the most finally happened. Someone knocked on our hotel room door again. The second I heard it, I yanked the door open as fast as I could. And what did I see? Nothing. But when I peeked out towards the hallway this time, I saw two people sprinting towards the stairs. I knew this had to be them. So I screamed out, "Hey, get back here!" as they were trying to make their escape. And this was the very first time I got a look at them. Because when they heard my voice, they turned back at me and had an expression on their face that said, "Wait, he wasn't supposed to come out of the room this fast." This was the one chance we had to catch these people, so I was going to make sure I didn't let it slip. I told them I was going to call the front desk and alert them that someone broke into our hotel room. And when they heard me say that, they immediately stopped in their tracks. When I saw them stop, I thought to myself, okay, so they are scared of getting caught. Got it. So I said out loud again, "If you guys don't come back here, the hotel is going to have you arrested for trespassing." Once again, I'm just making stuff up on the fly. The hotel probably wouldn't have done anything, because this is New York we're talking about. They have way bigger issues on their hand than whatever was happening to me and Nick Wilkins. But the two people who knocked on our door definitely got scared when I said this, because they finally started walking back toward our room. But instead of having that sneaky smirk I saw when they were running away, now they looked like a puppy begging for a treat. There was one guy and one girl, and when they were finally walking back towards us, the guy said, "Okay, please just don't do anything." The girl just stood there looking nervous and embarrassed. By this point, Nick heard all the noises and he was already up and outside of the room too. We finally had these people cornered with nowhere to run.
Oh,
And we
so it
were
wasn't the
about to
green
get the
shirt
answers
guy.
for what had been happening to us the past 3 days. But what they told us next completely changed everything we thought we knew. The truth behind our 3 nights of terror was way more bizarre than we ever could have imagined. Standing there in the hotel hallway at 2 a.m., Nick and I were face to face with two strangers who looked absolutely terrified. The guy kept looking back as if he was staring at the elevator, calculating if he would have enough time to escape. And the girl was holding a phone in her hand with the camera app open, which is also a very important detail to remember. Once they got close to us, we kind of just stood there for a second without saying anything, waiting for them to give their explanation for the knocking and the lasers. Finally, the girl just tries apologizing right off the bat. But we weren't interested in that. We just wanted to know Not jealous.
Hit like, subscribe. Goodbye. Part 2 soon.